All right. Well, I think we're live. So thank you guys so much for being here. So my name is Gwen. I'm head of investment here at Station F, and today we have a very special panel talking about living longer and healthier. And to do so, we have quite a panel with us. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Maybe just to get started, could you give us maybe a 1 minute short introduction about yourself? Maybe we can start with you, Noor.
Sure. So hi everyone, I'm Noor. I'm CEO at Glamorous AI. I have a background in AI and machine learning. So I was in my previous life an AI professor, then moved into the industry about 4 years ago, started two companies. Glamorous is my second. We're basically doing novel chemistry to decipher biology, basically innovating new ideas of machine learning so that we can design chemicals computationally and then test them faster and cheaper.
Amazing. And I know also you're currently working on COVID, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah, we have a number of collaborations. One of them is on COVID-19.
Vaccine or something, and you need to step out. Like, feel free to go. Mick, over to you.
Hi, Mick Ebling, founder and CEO of NonImpossible Labs. We are a tech incubator that focuses on social issues. We tend to stray towards health-centric issues of accessibility, mobility, access. Our mantra is technology for the sake of humanity. We are a group of hackers and makers and scientists, misfit engineers who like to just dogpile on problems with a ragtag team of brilliant collaborators to try to solve the problems. And then once we've solved them, we try to make it accessible in the best way possible.
Amazing. And can you touch upon maybe in a few words about Project Danielle? Because I know it was a big thing for you guys.
Sure. So Project Danielle, the origin of NonImpossible, we launched an ocular recognition device that we created for a paralyzed graffiti artist. And that led in making that, we did that with cheap sunglasses, a coat hanger, and a web camera. That kind of was the origin of how we started. Years later, we launched the world's first 3D printing prosthetic lab outside of a refugee camp in Sudan. And that was a tool that we created with simple 3D printers and filament, basic tools that we brought into the camp. And we taught the villagers how to make it after we left. But the ultimate success on that was that a young boy who was a double amputee was able to feed himself for the first time in 2 years.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Jérôme, thank you so much for being with us today. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Agentt?
Yeah, so Agentt is the company located at Station F, of course. And so myself, I've got a PhD in neuroscience. I have worked during 15 years as academic researchers focused on the neurodegenerative disorders. And I founded with my associate Baptiste Billoir 2 years ago, Agentt company. Agentt aims to develop the first blood diagnosis in order to detect patients suffering from Alzheimer's 1 or 2 decades before the dementia onset. And if we could detect the patient at this stage, we can imagine to provide them efficient treatment to slow down or avoid the dementia appearance.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, all of you, for being here. And I think we cannot start a panel today about health without talking about COVID, unfortunately. And I think that's my first question for you guys. We're probably living right now the first pandemic of the 21st century. And what do you think are maybe the main challenges of our civilization when facing a pandemic like this? How can we be well prepared, collaborative, and efficient when a crisis like that occurred? Maybe Noor, we can start with you.
Yeah. I guess one of the things that we realized when the pandemic hit is that whatever tool we've built so far, they haven't really been able to deliver, especially AI and machine learning. I'm talking specifically about those. They haven't really been able to deliver as people expected them to be. And that was mainly because we realized how data is fragmented and sits in silos, and how much time and effort it takes to connect all of this data and then draw the links using machine learning and AI. And that has so far slowed the progress that we've seen with COVID. So we're not really realized that we're not really prepared as a humanity to kind of just tackle diseases as we think we should be. So I think data access and collections and preparation and analysis, we realize that takes a lot of time. And infrastructure need to be put in place so that we can progress as fast as we can. And then from there, obviously, there are a lot of issues around funding and investment and where the money goes in terms of bringing in like vaccines or whether drugs like use and patient care. So all of that it just turns out that we are still behind in terms of tackling those issues.
Amazing. Nick, mine's what you have.
In terms of the challenges that we're facing, you know, for me, this has been such a revelation as to shining lights into the dark places that we might have talked about as issues, but maybe we haven't really truly addressed. There hasn't been a sense of urgency. There hasn't been a reason to deal with the issues maybe at the pace that we should have. For me, I think access to healthcare, especially in this country, is something that has revealed a huge social inequity. Last night, so we have recently spun off one of our absurdities that we've addressed into a separate company. We've raised a seed round, and it's addressing what we feel is a massive need, both a health need as well as a social need in this country and eventually the world. And so last night I had to go and enroll into the healthcare plan, right? So I'm the founder of the company. I've had healthcare my whole life. I am not inexperienced with the kind of on the consumer side of healthcare system, and it was a total pain in the ass. It was a pain in the ass. It was something that there was a lot I was having to figure out. I had to call a couple people to figure some stuff out, and that's someone who I'm used to that system. So for me, it's a big revelation of what's going on right now is how do we actually make sure that our people have access to healthcare? And then second to that, and also related, and this is, I think, a beautiful outcome. So that's something that COVID or not COVID, I think we have to address. But a beautiful outcome of this is that everyone's scared out of their minds to have face-to-face contact. So something that has been a drum that people have been beating for years is telemedicine. And then March hit, and now telemedicine is like, of course we're going to do telemedicine. Like magically it was accepted as just the way to do it. And that, I think, is a really positive outcome. I've had a couple appointments since March with this, and it's been fantastic because I haven't had to drive. I haven't had to wait for a doctor who is late for his or her appointment every time. It's created this pathway to having, I think, a more human experience, even though it's a distance experience, a more human kind of experience of what today's society looks like. So I think those are kind of my two observations.
Yeah, thank you. Jerome, anything to add?
So in my mind, that the main challenge that we face in preparing the potential future epidemics is the transmission of the scientific knowledge to general population, because we already know that the current bench discoveries will be the treatment of tomorrow, and we must finally learn citizens in order that finally continue to use a specific gist as natural habits. For example, to wash hands, to wearing mask, or to present a social distanciation if they are diagnosed as positive for a transmissible pathology, especially by respiratory infectious. And another challenge is fortunately, is the diagnosis, because this COVID-19 crisis learn us that one of the main aspects, if we want to treat an epidemic, but not only an epidemic, but also main of the disease, current disease, is your ability to early diagnose the patient in order to give us the efficient treatment to maintain under control the spreading of the viruses, for example, for the COVID-19.
Thanks. Maybe more, because I know you're focusing on the COVID-19 vaccine with University of Cardiff. Noor, can you tell us a little bit about where is it at? Where are we at?
We actually have now two projects on COVID-19, one with Cardiff University and another one with another university that we're working with. So the idea is basically we would like to bring a cure to the disease, basically a drug that you can take orally, like a pill. And that requires analysis of the protein, which is basically kind of the entity in your body that causes that disease, and then try and design, using machine learning and AI, try and design a small molecule drug, basically small chemical drug that you can take orally that interact with that disease-associated protein in the right way. We've done kind of what we call the in silico work, which is basically the computational work that requires analysis of the disease and also analysis of the chemical space. So a number of just basically using computational tools, try and get thousands of chemicals to interact with that disease and see what kind of interaction will produce. Will it cure the disease or not? So we've done the kind of computational work, and now we're in the phase where we've prioritized a number of compounds so that we can take them to basically test them in cell-based assays in cells that are basically that have the disease and see the effect. Well, having said that, drug discovery is usually a very long process, so I don't want to kind of over-promise. Just to give like an idea about the timeline we usually talk about, it generally speaking takes 15 years to take a drug to the market, and $2.6 almost billion of investment. And I think that's why a lot of big players, a lot of pharmaceutical industry is not really investing in finding a cure, because we know that by the time the cure reaches the market, it's probably the COVID-19 is not going to be there anymore. So it's really crucial to kind of find whatever ways possible to accelerate those efforts. And I think machine learning and AI can play a really big role in kind of accelerating that process. We can really, just using machine learning and AI, just shovel like about 5 years of that process. And with faster regulation and faster clinical trials, we can also kind of just shorten another 2 to 3 years. So it is possible, but I think it requires a lot of time and involvement from a lot of stakeholders in a lot of the kind of areas that requires that kind of collaborative efforts to get there.
Okay, thank you. And that makes a good transition to my next question. In health, more than anywhere else, we see a lot of collaboration between different type of actors. We see startups, academia, we see private small entities, private big entities. How does it work today? And do you think collaboration against like those different type of organization is running smoothly? And if not, like how could we improve that? Because it seems crucial to bring health to the public. Maybe Mick, we can start with you.
Sure. I think on the collaborative level, I actually just want to ask a quick question to the last response. So did I understand you is saying is that when you look at the investment and the time frame that
I can't do a snore. Okay.
Gone.
You can ask
I guess she didn't like my question. I guess it's like I'm not asking your question, I'm leaving. I guess my question was, and I'm going to ask her when she comes back, is because of the time and because of the investment that some companies are opting not to pursue that because of the fact that I think her statement was by the time it's actually developed, COVID-19 won't be an issue anymore. Was that what she said?
Yeah, that's what she was saying. She was talking about like the cycles of like development and funding needed to develop a drug versus probably a cure that's around the corner. So the investment seems not interesting for big pharma.
Sure.
Maybe, Jérôme, you work a lot with hospitals. Do you have a take on this as well?
Actually, I'm sorry. To that point, that I think that what we have seen in terms of collaborations here, whether or not it was a beneficial in terms of the end therapy around COVID patients, but you saw, companies called a company that we're familiar with, Ventec, developed a respirator in collaboration with GM. You're starting to see collaborations, and you're starting at least hear a lot of the stringent rules and regulations. You got a chance to see the government here say, the gloves are off, like whatever we have to do to get to some type of a triage solution. So for me, when you're out of a triage situation, if you've just proven that collaborations can take place between car companies and ventilator companies, and that accelerates an end result, again, it's debatable whether or not that actually is going to benefit the patients at the end, but it proved a point, then why would you then place back those same stringent guidelines after the triage situation is done? Because you've proven that kind of disparate and unusual collaborations could lead to extraordinary outcomes. So that's kind of what I'm hoping takes place, is that these collaborations can continue now that governments and institutions have seen them successful.
Yeah, and Jérôme, maybe do you have a take on this as well, maybe on that collaboration for COVID or for the rest?
Yeah, for the so I fully agree that we must interact between different scientific, especially field. Because it's really interesting to accelerate the development of potential treatment, but the best is to obtain drugs for patients. And I think one of the main key to develop this kind of treatment is to interact different scientific from different fields, especially artificial intelligence, but not alone. You must mix with especially neuroscientists for neurodegenerative disorders, or cancerologists, or epidemiologists, in order to finally optimize the tool as artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence is a good tool to accelerate the development, but we need to finally use the human knowledge to finally better drive the result obtained by artificial intelligence. And one other aspect, because you say, okay, so how could you imagine to accelerate the drug development? But we must keep in mind that we could not only develop drugs. We must not forget that if you want to have efficient drugs, you must detect patient before. And we must imagine the couple diagnosis and treatment. And without diagnosis, the treatment have no interest. Because if we are not able to identify the patient early enough to provide the treatment, the treatment will not be efficient. So finally, you must really keep in mind this couple diagnosis and treatment. And currently, there is a problem that the diagnosis is considered as the poor relation in the investment part. And it's really important to support, to invest in the same time the treatment, but also the diagnosis, in order to obtain this beautiful couple, diagnose the patient and treat the patient.
Mm-hmm. Well, I see we have 2 minutes and 30 seconds left on this very short panel, so I have maybe a very last question that is extremely vanilla, but are you optimistic? And do you think that if tomorrow we have to face health challenge like the one we faced / we're currently facing, do you think we'll be better prepared and better at facing it? Nick?
I think we will be.
Hey, Neil, I couldn't see you.
Oh, you couldn't see me. Can you see me now?
No, but go ahead.
Oh, interesting. Okay, but I think we definitely can. We will be like the capabilities will be improved. We already know the kind of the infrastructure that we need to put in place. We already realize the importance of telemedicine, for instance, as Mike mentioned. So we do kind of come to realize the importance of collecting data, of analyzing data, of privacy, how to kind of share data while making sure that people are comfortable sharing their data. So there's kind of a lot of these issues are figured out, and I think we will keep improving and innovating on those. So hopefully, I'm optimistic, and hopefully, as a humanity, we will learn a lot from this.
That's good to hear.
A society right now where you have such political division, such nationalistic tendencies of polarization and us versus them, it is unusual to have in this climate a thing called a pandemic that seems to be one unifying force of people trying to maintain some kind of human control over something that's been delivered from the outside. Our species has survived the Black Plague when we've had far less resources. I think that our species is going to do just fine now, albeit a tough time for some people. I believe it's going to remind us about the important things in life, the important things about humanity, and how to make healthcare and how to make what we do service the people and not get caught up into bureaucracies or institutions or rules and regulations, but to actually service patients in the best way possible.
So,
Yeah, and to conclude, as scientist, I'm optimistic by nature, and I'm sure that the next century, in this century, we will defeat the last diseases currently uncured. So I'm really, really optimistic.
Yes, we're perfectly on time. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you all for attending the panel.
Thanks.
And see you all very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.